webinar on Passover, on Chometz versus Matzah. And I'd love it. First of all, welcome to all of you. It's amazing how many people are on tonight, and I'm so excited. Everybody's getting ready for Passover, and I know that you're taking time out of your busy schedule this evening. And if it's not busy, then it should be busy. You should be busy preparing for Passover. And I am impressed that you all took time out to dedicate yourself, not just to physically prepare yourself for Passover, but spiritually to prepare as well. So we're going to just make sure that everybody can see us and hear us. If you can see the beautiful tree, the logo of the Hebraics Institute on your screen, tell us where you're from and post your name over there in the chat box, as well as letting us know that you do see that. Give us a 1 so we know that you see the image in front of you. Just type the number 1 into your chat box and we'll know that you are with us. And I see quite a few people here who have, at least judging from your name alone, who haven't been here before. So we're excited for you. It's going to be an exciting class. Although one thing you got to know about our webinars, we try to keep them as short as possible so you can get a tremendous amount of information. We like to call it the bite-sized meal of the Passover content. At the same time, we want to make sure that you are going to have everything that you hoped to learn tonight actually answered and explained for you. So at the end of tonight's webinar, we will take a few moments to answer your questions. And as such, and thank you everybody for all those amazing responses. Wow, it looks like people are here from all over the place. Looks like this webinar is actually international. Looks like we've reached some people that are from out of the United States already. Amazing. Welcome everybody. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you. So what I want to encourage you to do is not wait until the end when I mentioned that we will answer questions now, because as we've learned from the past, some people, by the time their question comes through, the webinar is already over. So if you do want us to answer your questions, don't be afraid to start posting them now, and certainly as we get into things. So let's jump right in and take you through tonight's webinar, everybody. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce myself to everybody. My name is Rabbi Avi, and it is nice to meet you, so to speak. And just so you have a face to put to the sound, to the voice that you're listening to. But we are going to jump right into our Passover message. 3 things you are going to learn tonight, today, at today's webinar, whatever time it is by you. First and foremost, the reason why I won't eat matzah right now. That's important. Second of all, the difference between matzah, and I want you to say this word with me, chometz. You see over here, this word is called chometz. I want you to say that with me, all right? And it makes a guttural sound. The difference between matzah and chometz is going to be learned on multiple levels. On physically, what the difference between the makeup of matzah and chometz is. Spiritually, the meaning between the differences and what we can learn from that. And even the message we learn from the way they are spelled in Hebrew. The mystical meaning of the letters Hey versus the letter Chet, which is the way we spell the word Chometz. So let's jump right in and get you all onto the same page, so to speak. Matzah and Chometz. As you can see, the matzah, and I'm going to help you see this. This word here is the matzah, and I hope everybody can see that clearly. If you can see your matzah highlighted in yellow, then I'd like you to give me a number 5 in the chat box so we know that everybody's system is up to par and working properly. Additionally, anybody who starts to cut out, you can refresh your screen, whether you're on a mobile device or on a desktop or on a laptop. You can refresh your screen. The only thing is, when you want to see us live, you'll have to hit the button that says live, the word on the bottom that says live. Otherwise, it'll take you back to the beginning. So I'm glad to see everybody can see matzah highlighted. So the matzah is spelled with the Hebrew word mem, tzadik, and hey. And let's spend a little bit of time, just a few moments, talking about what the makeup of matzah is and what matzah represents. So matzah is made from flour and water. Two ingredients, the two staples that a person needs to survive. And the matzah, which is made up of flour and water, is from the moment the flour touches the water, or vice versa, from the moment the water touches the flour, the matzah has to be kneaded and then rolled flat, and then baked, fully baked, all within an 18-minute period. And the reason for that is very simple, because 18 minutes from when flour gets wet, it begins a process called fermentation. It begins to ferment. When it ferments, what happens is it releases, the fermentation process is that it is releasing a gas. So that's why you'll notice, if you try this at home, if you mix flour and water, the gas that releases from that mixture, from the dough, you can actually smell, incidentally. But that gas, because it's released, it starts to puff the dough up. The gas releases and it sort of makes ear pockets. As you'll notice, if you take a loaf of bread and cut it in half, you'll see the inside, there's pockets of ear between the dough, and that's what makes it rise. So that's matzah, and the opposite of matzah, which is chometz. And you should see on your screen over here the word chometz being highlighted. So the chometz is the same ingredients, incidentally. It doesn't have to be. You can have other ingredients as well. But the two main ingredients of chometz is also flour and water. And the difference between the matzah and the chometz is the matzah was allowed to ferment. It was given more than 18 minutes from when it was mixed and kneaded until it was fully baked, and therefore it began the process of rising, and now it is chometz. And the Bible tells us very clearly that chometz during Passover is absolutely forbidden. You are not allowed to have even the minutest amount of that in your possession. Never mind in your home, you're not allowed to own it. Now, the difference between chometz and matzah is not just in their physical makeup, as I promised to explain to you, it's also in their spiritual makeup, meaning to say the meaning between that. What is the difference between bread, if you will, that's flat versus bread that's puffed up and given a chance to rise? And the answer is that, similar incidentally to the makeup of it, matzah, which is flat and doesn't lift itself up and puff itself up to impart its self-importance and say, hey, listen, I'm tasty and I'm delicious and I'm great, you should have me. Matzah represents humility, whereas chometz represents ego. And we'll talk about that in just a moment, a little bit more. But before we do, I want to take you into the actual spelling of these two words. As you'll notice, these two words over here, the chometz and the matzah, are actually spelled with almost the same Hebrew letters. You'll notice the letter mem, which I'm highlighting for you right now. That letter mem is either the second letter in Hebrew of chometz or the first letter in Hebrew of matzah. And the tzaddik is the second letter of matzah or the third letter of chometz. And you'll notice that over here it looks like it's a final tzaddik. It's a little bit of a different shape because whenever the tzaddik is found at the end of a Hebrew word, it takes a little bit of a different shape. It becomes long instead of bent. And that's called a final tzaddik or a tzaddik sofit. And the mem and the tzaddik are sheared in the sense that chometz and matzah come from the same two ingredients. They come from the same two letters, mem and tzaddik. So the only difference between the chometz and the matzah is not the letter mem and not the letter tzaddik, but instead it's the letter chet versus the letter hey. And the letter chet is on the right side over here, and I'll highlight that for you as well, and this time in red. And the letter hey over here on the left side is also the letter for Matzah, but it's also incidentally one of the letters in God's name. And you'll notice that the difference between the letter Hey versus the letter Chet is not a very, very large difference. As a matter of fact, it's a very small difference. You'll notice that the letter Hey, which is, I'm highlighting the difference for you in green right now, the letter Hey is missing a little bit, whereas the letter Chet completes itself over here, and therefore the wall is full. So let's spend a few moments before we get into the meaning and the deeper message of Chometz and Matzah and the reason why they're spelled so similarly and so different at the same time. Let's talk a little bit about that letter Hey versus the letter Chet. So you see the design of the letter Hey, which is incidentally the 5th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, is actually told to us by the mystics that it is really made up of the letter Dalid and the letter Yud. And the Dalid, which is the top part of the letter over here, right? And the part that comes down, the Dalid is actually composed of one horizontal line, which is the idea of width, and another vertical line, which is its height. And together they represent the physical world, the world of materialism. Now the letter Yud, which is the bottom part over here, it is just this little dot, so to speak, that it's the detached leg. It represents God and therefore spirituality. And the mystics teach us that just as the Dalit and the Yud come together to form the letter Hey, so too every one of us has an obligation to imbue and sanctify the physical world with spirituality and with godliness. That's the letter Hey. What's most important about the letter Hey, unrelated to all of these little drawings over here, is the fact that the letter Hey actually gives us an opportunity to rise upward. And where does it give you that opportunity to rise upward? The opportunity to rise upward is because it gives you a window. The window allows you to go from inside to out and upwards. Whereas the letter Chet, on the other hand, the letter Chet actually, which means, incidentally, the word Chet means a sin or that which is lacking. And the letter Chet, if you're inside, you're stuck. You can't go this way. You can't go that way. You can't go up. The only way you can go anywhere from a Chet is downward. And that's the idea, which the word Chet means sin. The letter Chet also doesn't allow you to rise. It doesn't allow you to go higher. And I don't want to confuse you there. By not allowing you to rise, Chet actually is Chometz. It means that you feel that you're self-important. It raises you up. It makes you feel that you're the one and the only one and the be-all and the end-all. Whereas Matzah with the Hey allows you to have that humility. So with that as an understanding, let's take you on to the next slide over here, the idea that Chometz, which represents ego, what exactly is wrong with ego? As a matter of fact, if you don't have any ego at all, then you'll be a doormat. You'll allow people to step all over you. So ego actually is a necessary component of who we are. It helps us recognize ourselves and take care of ourselves. However, when we allow ourselves to become somebody who thinks that we are in fact the important player here, what happens is that healthy ego transforms into something which takes over, and it compels us to not only rise up and treat others and think like Pharaoh did. Pharaoh, in his response to Moses came to him on behalf of God and said to him, God said, let my people go. He said, who is this God? I don't believe in God. As a matter of fact, he went so far as to say, I am God. I've created myself. That's what ego is capable of making you do. And that's why when it comes Passover, a time when we are celebrating the birth of the nation and celebrating who we are, we need to remember and remind ourselves that ego has to be eradicated. And ego is something which has to be, even in the minutest amount, has to be taken away so that we don't end up in the same state that Pharaoh did. Now let's focus on the matzah. Matzah, on the other hand, is, despite the fact that the Hebrew letter allows you to rise upwards, it's a little bit of a counterintuitive idea. Matzah actually teaches us to be humble, because, as we said, it's not given an opportunity to ferment. It doesn't rise. And what does that mean? That means it says, I'm not the be all and the end all. Even with my phenomenal talents, even with all my abilities, I recognize that they are in fact not mine, but rather God-given opportunities and God-given talents. And therefore, it allows you to have a window to go outward and to go upward instead of to fall downward. Because when you are able to be humble, when you're able to recognize that you're here for a purpose and you're here to serve something greater than yourself, then you become a vehicle, a conduit for God, which is much greater than anything you can be on your own. And with that message, we now come to something that I want to tell you about, the difference between Chometz and Matzah. And incidentally, I promised to tell you why I don't eat matzah, so let's go back there for just a moment. The not eating of matzah is something which is a custom, an ancient custom that is practiced throughout the world for generations at this point, that 30 days, or at least minimally a week before Passover, we don't eat matzah. And the reason for that is to make sure that the taste of matzah, and you have to realize matzah being flour and water, being the food of humility, being something which is not that fancy, is also not necessarily that attractive. It's not the taste of matzah that's really attractive, that makes matzah all that important, because it's just two simple basic ingredients, flour and water. It's not that tasty, it's not that great, it's not that enticing. But it's not the taste of the matzah that's enticing. It's the message and the meaning of the matzah. In other words, the mitzvah, the commandment of the matzah, the ability for it to allow us to demonstrate our faith, just like we demonstrated our faith 3,327 years ago when we followed God into the desert with just the matzah on our back. That matzah is something which we want to look forward to. And therefore, we don't eat matzah from either 30 days before Passover or at least a week before Passover, so that when we come to the Seder, it's something which is a fresh taste. It's something we're looking forward to. It's something we're anticipating. And that is why I won't eat matzah now. Now, in addition to that, I wanted to tell you, we have just released a phenomenal, if you think this course was something that gave you insight, a phenomenal 5-video long lesson on the 15 steps of the Passover Seder. It's literally a step-by-step guide, and it's an online course, just to make that clear, to an authentic biblical Passover Seder. And if you take this course, this is something that's going to allow you, not only it's based on the biblical Hebrew verses, and you actually have, as you see over here on the right side, you'll have your own Passover Haggadah, which this is a bonus. This is one of the free bonuses of the course. It will take you to step by step with all of the instructions to understanding the meaningful messages and the spiritual component to each one of the 15 steps of the Seder. It also includes a shopping list of everything you'll need in order to make sure that you're properly prepared for your Passover Seder. And it will guide you each and every one of those 15 steps to understand what the journey in those 15 steps are. Meaning to say, what is it that you're supposed to understand and implement and integrate into your life from those 15 steps of the Passover Seder. Additionally, there are, just like tonight, there was some additional bonuses to what you were expecting. There are actually 4 bonuses to that course. It makes it a very exciting course. It'll give you not only the message we learned tonight about Passover, but so much more. It'll make Passover the journey you always knew it could be, but perhaps didn't have the tools to recognize. And guess what? Because you joined us tonight, this class is actually going to be available for only $27. It is something for this week only to take advantage of, and we are going to give you an opportunity right now, before we begin answering all of your questions, to purchase that course. And this is going to be displayed, I believe, on the side of your screen right now. You should be able to click on the button that says sign up today, and you will be one of the first lucky ones not only to have your own Passover Seder from the Hebraics Institute, but the Passover Haggadah, but the entire course with me literally walking you through step by step and holding your hand to make sure you understand the full meaning of every one of those steps. Some of the bonuses that I promised that you will receive: the downloadable Haggadah, which is beautifully illustrated with all of the text and all of the meaning and the instructions, more importantly, of what you're supposed to do at each of those steps. The video class, there's actually 5 videos as a part of that class. It's a very engaging class. It's going to inspire you to really make the most of each one of those steps. And finally, it's, as we mentioned, this step-by-step guide to make sure it's almost as if you will be sitting at my Passover Seder, being instructed step-by-step as to what you can do and being taught how the meaning of that Haggadah is really relevant to your life as well. So let's review what you learned today before we jump into your questions, ladies and gentlemen. The 3 things you learned today: the custom of not eating matzah before Passover, so it's a fresh taste. The matzah and chometz both are flour and water, but one is humble and allows us to progress and to rise up, not with ego, but to rise up in our spiritual journey. The other is ego, and it traps us, and the only way to get out, so to speak, is downward. And of course, we learned the mystical meaning of the letter Hey versus the letter Chet, which, as we mentioned, is another word for sin, which means that from there you only go downward. At this point, we will be delighted to take your questions and your answers. And you can, if you haven't already, type them into the chat module on the right side of your screen. You can do so now. And let's take a look over here at our first question. Wow. Just incidentally, by the way, I think this particular webinar, we have people all the way from Hawaii and from all around the United States and from overseas as well, looks like from South America. Wow. Welcome, welcome everybody. We're very excited to see you all tonight. And I hope you guys enjoyed this class as much as I did. It looks like, let's see over here, the English spelling of the word. That is a very, very good question. The actual English spelling of the word, let's see if we have it over here for you. It is, see here, right over here. So I'll highlight that for you so that you can see that. That is a great question. I probably should have pointed it out to you before. Here is the word matzah, and here is the word chometz. Now the CH is the letter chet. You see here the letter chet? That makes the guttural sound. But in English, there's no guttural sound. So therefore, we sort of substitute it with the CH to make that guttural sound. And it's, even though some people pronounce it chometz, it's really pronounced chometz. And that's the English spelling over there. So that's a great question. Let's see any of the other questions that we have over here. And the hummus that you're referring to, that it sounds like hummus, actually would be something that we wouldn't eat on Passover. It comes from chickpeas, and it's a mixture of chickpeas with, I believe, sesame seeds. But yeah, the hummus, or hummus, as some people call it, because they can't make that guttural sound, that's something entirely different. Chometz is any mixture of the 5 grains with water that was given time to ferment. That's the definition of chometz. And let's see over here, other questions that we have tonight. So actually, that question is a great question. Let me tell you a little bit about what someone is asking, the significance behind the 4 glasses of wine at the Passover Seder. Now, the 4 glasses of wine, which incidentally don't have to be glasses. As a matter of fact, it's accustomed to try to use a silver goblet, as fancy as you can get, for that special commandment of the 4 cups. And the significance of the 4 cups actually is explained in the Passover class. So I encourage you to take the class. You'll actually learn a lot more about it there. But the 4 cups of wine, or grape juice if you can't drink wine, are reminiscent of the 4 verses that God command, or the 4 terms in the verse where God promises to take us out of exile in the Bible. And since he uses 4 terms, the sages taught us that these 4 terms actually represent or signify the fact that you need to make 4 blessings over 4 cups of wine. And that's the background behind those 4 cups of wine. But again, for a full, complete answer, I encourage you to take the course. One of the bonuses goes into depth into the symmetry behind those 4 cups and several other things that are 4 as well throughout the night. You'll notice that there's a lot of numbers that get repeated throughout the Passover Seder. You are so welcome for all those thank yous. Everybody who said thank you individually, in each and every one of you, you are welcome. That is a great question. Someone wants to know if we reached 1,000 people, and are we giving away the free Chumash, the free Hebrew English leather-bound Bible? Let us take a quick look over here if we have 1,000 attendees yet. It looks like we actually just made it. That's impressive, guys. Wow. All right. So one of the lucky winners tonight, and let's see over here, we'll get one of our staff members to put you all into a random drawing and see which one of you is going to be the lucky recipient of that leather-bound Bible. And I will let you know in just a moment when we're done answering everybody else's questions. Let's see over here. Okay, someone over here says that they are completely lost because they know nothing of Hebrew. Actually, as a matter of fact, that should not be something that should cause you to be lost. As a matter of fact, one of the highlights of the Hebraics Institute is our in-person live seminar, which is a day-long seminar. It starts 9 o'clock in the morning and it finishes at 5:30 with a decent lunch break and questions and answers. And during that one-day seminar, we guarantee that you will learn how to read Hebrew fluently. That is something that we have many people who have gone through, who have never even seen the Hebrew alphabet up until that point, or at least not been able to use the Hebrew alphabet. And at the end of the day-long course, they were capable of actually reading Hebrew. As a matter of fact, being that we're right before Passover, one of the seminars that we gave, which was about 2 weeks before Passover, one of our alumni wrote a beautiful letter afterwards letting us know how, and at the seminar we don't teach about the Passover Seder, we have enough on the plate, so to speak, pardon the pun, to learn during that one day. They let us know that they, within 2 weeks after the seminar, were able to lead their Passover Seder, including the readings in Hebrew, and they were extremely proud of themselves. So that's something, if you are feeling lost because you can't read Hebrew, I strongly encourage you to consider taking the one-day in-person live seminar, and those are available around the country. If you don't see one on our website being posted right now near where you are, definitely subscribe or fill out a contact us form and tell us where you're located, and we'll let you know when the next upcoming webinar, seminar in person will be in your location. That is true. I do stand corrected. It looks like someone pointed out that We mentioned the lucky winner, and in reality, it has very little to do with luck. It has a lot more to do with your blessings. That is true. Even though usually if you have the blessings, people call you lucky. But you are correct. I do sit or stand corrected. Someone else wants to know very quickly, one of our last questions for the evening. If someone wants to drink wine with the Seder meal, would they use a different cup than the one used for the 4 cups? Not necessarily. You certainly can. The only time you're supposed to be drinking other wine during the Passover Seder is actually during the meal. Other than that, the wine is reserved for the 4 cups that we mentioned. But that is a great question. You certainly can drink from the same cup or from a different cup, whichever you like. The purpose of this special cup is more to show that it is important to you to drink the 4 cups rather than being exclusive. But there's nothing wrong with making it exclusive. The next seminar for learning Hebrew is, I believe, coming up, but if I don't have all that information offhand, those are great questions, and I encourage you to send those in using the contact form on Hebraics.org, and someone in the office will certainly let you know right away. And let's take the last question before we announce the winner of our leather-bound Bible in Hebrew and English on Genesis. Let's see, who's the blessed winner who's going to receive the last answer to their question over here? All right, that is a very good question. Someone asked about the ingredients of the Seder plate, of what it is that we use during the Passover meal. That's not something that we're covering in tonight's webinar, but again, that is covered in depth in your Haggadah, as well as in the Passover course, as we go through the 15 steps, the significance of each of them, including not just the parameters and the law, the legal aspect of it, but even the spiritual aspect of each ingredient is taught as part of this Passover Seder class. So if you don't see it on the right side, this should be available to you right there. But if you don't see it, let me see. Yeah, no, it should pop up. If you do see that offer, give me a 5 in the chat box. I just want to make sure that everybody can see it, because it looks like some people are asking about the course. And again, if you can't find it, I know technology always presents new difficulties to people. So if you are having trouble seeing the offer of the $27 Passover course, which is really an $89 value, don't be afraid. If you were on this webinar, you will receive an email shortly afterwards with a link to that offer as well. We won't make you miss out just because of technical difficulties, but I believe you should be seeing it, judging from the answers already, on the right side over there, and it should be a yellow box that says sign up today, pre-launch pricing with bonuses, the Passover course. So take advantage of that. And of course, everybody who was on today, we look forward to you joining us in our future webinars as well. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thank you for all your great questions and for your great engagement. And now I am very excited to tell you the winner of our leather-bound Hebrew English Bible on Genesis is none other than Patrick. So Patrick, we'll contact you with all the details, and we'll collect your address and send that out to you. Congratulations on receiving your leather-bound. It's Patrick R, by the way, because it looks like there's more than one Patrick there. Patrick R, and in case you're wondering if your name is Patrick R and you didn't receive the email, that means that there was another Patrick R. I'm looking through all the names. It's potentially there's another Patrick R. Do you see that? But either way, we'll email you momentarily with all the details, and we will send you your prize. Congratulations, and everybody have a wonderful evening, and we will see you all next week or after Passover at a future webinar. Keep well, everybody.